Hello, everybody, and welcome to part 2 of Inside William & Mary's School of Marine Science at VIMS, which is our 4-part informational webinar series. My name is John Griffin, and I am the Assistant Director for Admissions and Student Affairs here at the School of Marine Science. And I'm so excited that you all are taking the time to join us tonight and to hear a little bit more about why VIMS is a leader in marine science. It's going to be a really great night. Some of the panelists that are lined up to talk to you all are phenomenal, and I think you're going to really have some great insight that's coming from them. First tonight, Dr. Mark Brush will be joining us. He is a VIMS Associate Professor in our Department of Biological Sciences. I'm really excited for Mark to be here because I feel like he has to know everything about the School of Marine Science by now. He is our chair of the Academic Council, which is our highest council here at VIMS for supporting and advancing our academic programs. So pretty much every major change and initiative that's coming into the program is going through Mark and his committee. So really excited for him to give us all his wisdom. Also tonight, we'll be joined by Dr. William Goldsmith. Willie graduated from VIMS with his PhD in 2018. He was a part of our Department of Fisheries Sciences, but he also pursued his sub-concentration in marine policy, which is a great opportunity that we at VIMS offer. Willie has a great story and a lot of insight to tell everybody about his career and his pathway in marine science and policy. But right now, he is the executive director at American Saltwater Guides Association, and I'm really looking forward to hearing his narrative later on. Also tonight, we'll be joined by Kristen Sharpe, who is a current VIMS Master of Science student in our Department of Biological Sciences. Kristen is currently in our zooplankton ecology lab, where she studies zooplankton communities in the York River and the Sargasso Sea off of Bermuda. She'll talk a lot more about her research and everything that she does. But I'm really excited for Kristen to be here because she is the current Graduate Student Association president. So all big initiatives that are oriented towards student community development, our large event gatherings for students and community events, all of that's going through Kristen. So we really appreciate everything she does, and she'll provide you with great insight into that graduate student life here at VIMS. Also, we'll be joined by Justin Shawler, who's a current VIMS PhD student in our Department of Physical Sciences. Justin is a coastal geologist who studies the barrier islands out on the Eastern Shore and everywhere. He'll talk a lot more about what his research is, and I don't want to butcher it right now, so he'll take charge there, and also hopefully explain to us why he's hip deep in mud and muck during this photo. Probably a great story. So yeah, that's who will be joining us here shortly. But as I said, you'll get to listen to me talk for just a little bit longer as I give you a bit more of an overview of what VIMS is and who we are and everything that we do. So first off, VIMS, we are the Virginia Institute of Marine Science. We are located in Gloucester Point, Virginia, which is right here on the York River. As you can see from this photo, we couldn't be much closer to the water, which is exactly where we want to be as a marine science institute. The backbone of VIMS is our 3-part mission, which is to conduct research in coastal, ocean, and estuarine science, educate students and citizens, and provide advisory services to policymakers, industry, and the public. VIMS is a part of the heart and well-being of the Commonwealth of Virginia, and everything we're doing is really towards benefiting and supporting all the communities around us that rely on the water. And as we hear more from the panelists tonight, you'll really get to see how all of this 3-part mission gets to occur and take place and what opportunities it provides to our graduate students. Here at VIMS, we have a School of Marine Science, but our School of Marine Science is actually one of William & Mary's 5 graduate schools. William & Mary is a globally recognized university located in Williamsburg, Virginia, which is about 30 minutes west of where we are at VIMS. Through our connection with William & Mary, all of our students get the great amenities and community that come with being connected to such a globally recognized university. So we're very excited to have that and be a part of William & Mary. Here at the School of Marine Science, we offer 3 different graduate degrees. We offer a Master of Arts, a Master of Science, and a PhD in Marine Science. So if you're interested in the ins and outs of what all those different degrees are, please take a look at our website. You'll get to see a lot more about what they provide for you and what the intended outcome are with those degrees. Or you can join us at later sessions of these webinars to really have a deeper dive into these different programs and what they can provide you with. As for the physical space of VIMS, where we're all inhabiting and thriving, here at VIMS, our students have access to a lot of really phenomenal amenities that make sure that they can be the leaders in marine science. A great one is the private VIMS beach, which you can see on the bottom right-hand corner, which, yes, it does provide our students with great recreational resources, but also plenty of our students get to do immediate work and research right here on the VIMS beach and in this York River that we have access to. Here at VIMS, we also have our own boat basin, which stores all of our vessels, an oyster aquaculture center, a seagrass nursery, and an Eastern Shore lab, which is located out on the Virginia Eastern Shore. As I said, here at VIMS, we have more than 30 vessels, which provide our students with a lot of research opportunity, from smaller vessels all the way up to our latest RV Virginia, which is a 93-foot state-of-the-art research vessel, which you can see down in the bottom left-hand corner. Really, all these vessels and resources combine to provide our students with just great opportunities and resources to pursue that crucial marine science that they're interested in doing. Also here at VIMS, we have our classrooms spread all across campus. So you'll be taking classes in all different buildings, and you'll have some larger classes with about 20 students in your entry classes. But you'll also have some more small, intimate classes where you'll get to really know your professor and your colleagues who are focused on that higher level marine science topic. Another really great thing about VIMS, which allows us to be leaders in marine science, is all of the centers and programs and departments that are present right here on our campus. Here at VIMS, we have the Center for Coastal Resources Management. We have the Chesapeake Bay National Estuary Research Reserve. We have our Marine Advisory Services, and the NOAA Virginia Sea Grant is located right here on our campus. So all of this allows our students to have a lot of phenomenal networking and professional development occur through all these centers and resources so that they can really thrive and go into the different areas of marine science that they want to go into and be highly effective in their careers and in their futures. As for the School of Marine Science, we have 4 academic departments. We have our aquatic health sciences, our biological sciences, our fishery science, and our physical sciences. And as you can see, we pretty much span the whole spectrum of marine science research areas, which allow our students to be really high performing in the interdisciplinary nature of marine science. And all of that really speaks to the research that we do here, which can extend from inland watersheds to the open ocean. Our expertise is in coastal and estuarine science and the Chesapeake Bay. However, that does not prevent us from sending cohorts of students down to Antarctica to do research down in that ecosystem, which Kristen will hopefully get to talk about later tonight since she went last spring and all of us are extremely jealous. But the research that we do here is not just for the Chesapeake Bay, it's for the whole globe. And the research that our students get to do and the impact that they get to have is really phenomenal and speaks to the education that they receive here. Another phenomenal aspect that we're really proud of here at VIMS is the funding and the financial support that we provide our graduate students. As you're pursuing a degree in marine science, you'll most likely have the opportunity to be funded for the work that you do as a student. And currently, in any given semester, we have anywhere from mid-80s to 100 students on campus at one time. And at the moment, all of our students are receiving financial aid from either institutional funds or from external funds through their advisors, such as grants, fellowships. And here on campus, our students have access to research assistantships, teaching assistantships, workships, all of these different ways that we get to help them provide. We provide for them extra financial support so they don't have to worry as much about the funding costs of pursuing that advanced degree. We also have a host of fellowships that we can provide our students to add additional layers of financial aid to support students as they pursue either extra research or professional development in one way or another. So that's another area that we're really proud of here. Finally, the last feather in our cap that I'll talk about is career placement. It's a really important part of pursuing your graduate degree, and I'm happy to report that VIMS students do really well in placing in their career. This is a small picture here of graduate placement from VIMS. This is our most recent graduate cohort. It was 19 students who graduated this last year. And all of them, of the 19, 18 of them graduated with jobs at graduation or immediately after graduating. One of them decided that they wanted to take a break after graduating, which is understandable. But as you can see here, all of our graduates from our doctoral program are heading off into really phenomenal postdocs at institutions across the US. A combination of our doctoral students and our master students are heading into research scientist positions at NOAA, in other federal agencies, and local state agencies. They're heading into Canals fellowships in either the office of Senator Lisa Murkowski or at NOAA. Students are heading into the for-profit section, and even one student decided to continue their graduate school career at another institution in California. So overall, the point of going to graduate school is the career placement and where it can get you, and VIMS students have a great network that they can tap into, and the research, professional development, and academics that we provide our students really speak highly of the potential for VIMS students to succeed later on. And I'd be remiss if I left you all without talking really quick about admissions and applications for getting here. If you are interested in coming, just to let you know, our application is open and it'll close on January 6th. So if you're interested in coming and applying here, please make sure you have all of your materials submitted by January 6th. All of the information that we are requiring is listed below. But if you're interested in more detailed analysis of what goes into admissions and the application, please check the website right there, or tune into our very last webinar on November 17th, where we will do a much deeper dive into the admissions process here at VIMS and hear from individuals in the admissions committee and faculty on what they look for in an application. But for now, that's enough of me talking, and I'm going to stop sharing so that I can invite our very first panelist up to screen to talk about their marine science experience. So Kristen Sharpe, would you turn your camera on and come join me? Everybody, I'm going to hand you off to Kristen.
Thank you, John. So hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be able to talk with you all tonight. So as John told you already, my name is Kristen Sharpe, and I'm a third-year master's student at VIMS, and I am in the zooplankton ecology lab working with Dr. Debbie Steinberg. And so just like a little bit about me and as far as how I got where I am right now, I've really always been interested in marine science since I was a little girl. I loved The Little Mermaid and Free Willy and movies and TV shows like that since I was very young. And I grew up in central New York, so the closest I was to the ocean was the Hudson Bay, and it was about 5 hours away. So I was kind of discouraged from following that path by some friends and family members. So I actually went to college intending to become an environmental lawyer. And I changed my mind midway through. I realized that wasn't actually where my heart was, and I would rather pursue something that I was actively interested in. So I kind of recalibrated and started to re-enter the science focus field. And John had asked us to share why we chose VIMS tonight, but in my case, it's more like VIMS chose me. So after I graduated from college and got my bachelor's degree in Syracuse in 2013, I moved down to coastal Virginia because my sister lived here. And I took a few months off because, you know, college is hard. And then I started looking for jobs, and I heard about VIMS and I thought it sounded awesome. And so I ended up applying for jobs, and I ended up getting hired as a part-time, initially, marine education specialist at one of the centers that John mentioned, which is the Chesapeake Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve in Virginia, which is a part of NOAA, the National Estuarine Research Reserve System under NOAA. But each of the sites around the country has a federal and a state partnership. So the state partner in this case is VIMS, which is really incredible and really nice that we have that here. So I started working there in February of 2014, and I led education programs from field trips to classroom visits summer camps, public education events, and it was an awesome experience. I absolutely loved it. I worked in that job for almost 5 years and interacted with thousands of students and members of the general public. And I was not only able to develop professionally in all of my skill set, but also I was able to publish articles and lesson plans. And also I went on a lot of different adventures, did a lot of traveling for conferences, which was an added perk to the job. But ultimately, I knew that I did want to go into active marine science research. So I ended up going to Debbie Steinberg, my advisor, and talking to her about the application procedure. And she had mentioned a few of the projects that she was involved in, because our lab is one of the few that does research really all over the world, which is pretty incredible, including Antarctica, as John alluded to. But I spoke to Debbie and she encouraged me to apply. And so I ended up applying and was accepted into the program. And so I started in the fall of 2018 and I'm expecting to finish this summer. So probably mid-July, I'll be finishing with the master's program and defending my thesis. So just to kind of reiterate some of the things that John said and kind of add my own spin to the reasons why I think VIMS is absolutely incredible and the reason why I signed on for an additional 3 years after I spent 5 here, are that we really have high quality vessels and facilities from all the facilities and vessels on main campus, i.e. the VIMS campus, not the William & Mary campus, but also the Eastern Shore facilities, all the additional areas where we do research, all of the ships and research vessels that we do research on that are not necessarily VIMS vessels, but associated with programs that we're involved in. And also having really quality instructors and a high faculty and staff to student ratio. That's huge for me. My undergraduate college had about 2,000 students, so it was relatively small. It was about the same size as my high school, actually. So I was used to being one of 20 students in a class. So I enjoy that really high, or I guess the high faculty and staff to student ratio. And also we have one of the most rigorous, but also relevant academic programs in marine science, in my opinion. It is difficult as far as the coursework, but it's so applicable. There's really an emphasis on applying the knowledge that you're gleaning through doing hands-on labs and field trips and all kinds of applications of your research, developing tangible products from a lot of your classes. And financial support was huge. So John talked a little bit about that. And as someone who was working full-time, it definitely was necessary for me. There's no way that I would have been able to come back to school if there hadn't been that external, or I guess internal, financial support from the Office of Academic Studies at VIMS and also through my advisor and the projects that I'm working on. The advisory mandate at VIMS is huge. That's one of the largest things that students and staff and faculty really enjoy about being at VIMS, is that we are kind of almost like the science advisors for the Commonwealth, which is really incredible. So you have this tangible application of your research, and sometimes actually in real time, which is really cool because you get that extra added fulfillment and feeling of happiness initially with your research. And that's really nice as well. All of the additional centers on campus, while they're great for networking, they're also great for allowing you to do research in additional study sites. So for example, the National Estuarine Research Reserve has 4 protected sites that students can apply for a permit to do their research within those sites, which is pretty awesome. You have access to long-term data from those programs as well, because they've been doing sea level rise and marsh movement research for over 27 years now. And you also have access to more resources and tools that those departments have as well. And I would just say, this is always everyone's overarching message to why you should be interested in potentially choose VIMS for a graduate program, is that there's an awesome collaborative spirit among the faculty, staff, and students. I would truly say that I feel comfortable approaching almost every single faculty member and staff member on this campus. I can't honestly think of any that I'm not comfortable approaching for help and guidance. And most people have an open door policy. They're so willing to help. And it's really incredible and heartwarming to have that available for us. And also there's just a huge sense of community in general. So we have a lot of community-based events. And John spoke a little bit about my role as the GSA, or the Graduate Student Association president. And we do a lot of social programming for not only the graduate students, but also the greater VIMS community. So for example, we have annual parties in the spring and fall that bring together the entire community for a fun opportunity to socialize outside of the specific work setting. So I would say that that's also very big. Our cohorts of graduate students are typically very tight-knit and social amongst themselves, particularly because we are in a more rural area. So it is important that we have that continuity and support amongst each other. We're just really a bunch of marine science nerds is basically what it boils down to. So because we're so specialized here and we're really just focusing on marine science, and most of us are focusing on coastal marine science, it's really incredible to just have a whole bunch of people that are just as nerdy as you are. And that's that's pretty much my spiel as far as what I like most about VIMS. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys may have about my research or my experiences. But it's just a pleasure to be here with you guys tonight, and I'm happy I get to share with you all.
Thank you so much, Kristen. We really appreciate it. And we'll look forward to having you back here in a minute. All right, so thank you, Kristen. And now our second panelist, I'd like to invite Justin Shawler to come join me up here in center screen. And Justin, thank you for coming, and the audience is yours.
Great, thanks, John, and thanks, Kristen. I feel like Kristen gave you all a really good background on all things VIMS from a grad student perspective. So I think that'll allow me to just focus on a little more narrowly my own maybe perspective on all of this. So like John said, I'm a PhD candidate here at VIMS, and my work focuses on coastal geology. So I'm in our physical sciences department, which also includes a lot of marine chemists and physical oceanographers and some other geologists as well. And my work mostly focuses on barrier island change. So short-term change driven by a particular storm impacting the coast, or thousands of years of change. So looking at the long-term record of sea level rise along the coast. And like Kristen, I maybe grew up knowing a bit about marine science, but never really saw it as a pathway for myself. My undergraduate background started out in government, and then I took an intro geology course, got really interested in geology because of the connections between earth science and policy. And it wasn't until the summer before my senior year of college that I really seriously started considering marine science programs, in particular programs with really good marine geology departments, which VIMS certainly falls in that category. And what drew me to VIMS was the opportunity to do the research experience for undergrads program here in the summer. And I was able to build a relationship with my advisor, Chris Hine, and turn that into a longer conversation about applying to graduate school here at VIMS. And what drew me to VIMS, what I learned during the REU program, and I think is a really good emphasis VIMS-wide, and in that program in particular, is our advisory service mission. So being able to connect the basic research that we do as scientists into the applied and management focused world was really important to me. And it's something that I've been able to, as a VIMS student, be a part of. So Kristen was talking about how we can make these connections between our research very directly because of our meaning VIMS's role in state government, and also as a policy advisor to the state, as well as local governments and just citizens in general. And so as part of that mission, I've been able to be involved in things like VIMS is asked to comment on shoreline projects that are happening around the bay or out on the open ocean coast. So I've been able to participate in those even as a student, and that's been a really great experience. But my own research focused on the Virginia coast has allowed me to work with the planning district out on the Eastern Shore, as well as the town of Chincoteague. And so our research there is being directly translated into useful knowledge for their own coastal planning. And then one other thing that I wanted to talk about as well was this idea of funding support. hopefully any science graduate program, research science graduate program that you're attending or looking to attend will provide tuition and stipend support. But VIMS stands out as a place that guarantees that for you. So I've had funding from the School of Marine Science itself, so Office of Academic Studies, my advisors, research grants, as well as a Virginia Sea Grant Fellowship, and that easy access to the Virginia Sea Grant Office, outside of COVID times, being able to attend in-person meetings at Sea Grant is a really nice opportunity. There are a lot of VIMS students that end up funded through Virginia Sea Grant, and they've got a great graduate fellowship program as well as post-grad fellowship programs. And then one reason I think you all should consider VIMS is because of the people. We've got really great faculty, really great students to spend time with, to work with. And I think the key to doing well at VIMS is, and doing well in the application process, is to start to build those connections with VIMS professors ahead of time. Have someone in mind and really start to reach out. You might think it seems like a cold email, but it's not. The advisors are waiting for those emails and expecting those emails now, basically. So reach out now, reach out early in the process, and really shop around. I think the key to a successful grad program and time in graduate school is that really strong student advisor relationship, and that's something that VIMS has allowed me to have and allowed nearly every other student to have as well. And so seriously take that time to really build that relationship early. But that's all I had. Thanks, John.
Thank you so much, Justin. That was great advice. We really appreciate it. With that, I would like to invite Dr. William Goldsmith to come join me up here on center screen. Willie?
Great.
The audience is all yours.
Right on. Thanks, John. Thanks for having me tonight. And hi, everybody. Thanks for being here tonight. My name is Willie Goldsmith, as John mentioned. I think I am the solo alum on this panel. So I graduated from VIMS almost 3 years ago now, actually, with a PhD from the Fisheries Science Department at VIMS, along with a sub-concentration in marine policy. And I think, my story before grad school when I was looking is maybe a little bit different, although it sounds like Justin and I might have some things in common. I've always been a fish guy. I've always loved fishing and fish and the oceans, but was never quite sure if that was really what I wanted to pursue as a career path. I was a history major in college, always really interested in public policy. And after college, kind of got to thinking that, maybe this is something I really want to be involved in. Maybe I want to work in, fisheries policy, fisheries management, and try to, improve the state of our oceans. So that's kind of, where my mind eventually evolved. And I realized that in order to do that work, it's really important to have a solid grounding in the science, right? It's, the science is all, ideally is going to be used to help inform the policy. And then also, if you're in those policy-making discussions, having some of that scientific background can really add a lot of credibility to your argument and really help kind of advance your cause. And so that's kind of, where my mind went after college. Started shopping around, kind of as Justin was saying, some of the legwork happens before you get to grad school. It's, in those interactions with prospective advisors. I reached out to Dr. John Graves, who's still at VIMS, and at that time was the Department of Fishery Science chair, and just got to talking with John kind of about my interests and my goals and, how I wanted to be kind of ultimately working in fisheries policy, but understood the need for science. John is a fisheries geneticist by trade, but has also been involved in domestic and international management of highly migratory species like tunas and sharks for over 20 years. So a great kind of, living example of, research informing advisory service. And it seemed like a perfect fit. And so at that point, basically decided that VIMS was the right place for me to really get that baseline knowledge, but also, be able to zoom in on really my key interests. So I came to VIMS in 2013, and that was a pretty transformative year for me. As I mentioned, I didn't have really a formal training in marine science. At that point, I had taken some undergrad courses in evolutionary biology, but didn't really have, that core knowledge that you really need. And I think what really appealed to me about VIMS was the ability to really get, through that introductory curriculum, a great foundational knowledge of the key issues, understanding physical oceanography, biological oceanography, the kind of the key factors that form the building blocks of everything that we study and then ultimately manage from a policy standpoint. So that was huge for me during my first year. And at the same time, I know everybody's experience is different, but in my case, I certainly, did not come in with a project in mind necessarily, and was, really worked closely with Dr. Graves to refine a project, again, thinking about what my own goals were, recognizing that I wasn't necessarily looking to be a career scientist, but wanted to understand how the process worked, and really working closely with him to figure out, what project might help me meet those goals. And kind of serendipitously, kind of near the end of my first year, Dr. Andrew Sheld, who's now an economist with VIMS, joined. So this was in 2014. And basically between the three of us, because Andrew came on as my co-advisor, came up with this project using a combination of satellite telemetry, so tagging, and then also surveys of fishermen to try to better understand bluefin tuna fishermen behavior and also their impact along the East Coast. So it was kind of a perfect opportunity for me to see, for me to conduct research that was immediately relevant to management, and then also working collaboratively with the industry, which is basically everything that I wanted. So it was a great combination, and it worked out really well. So, with all of this in mind, starting the project, we basically were fortunate to get some additional funding. And I saw that there was a question about, if you come in as a master's student, can you then transfer to a PhD? So I came in as a master's student, but then kind of given how well the project was going, it was, I couldn't really imagine if there's anything else I'd rather be doing. Decided to go ahead and bypass and go right to the PhD. So you can come in as a master's student and then, basically take your comprehensive exams and move into the PhD program, which I think is a great amount of flexibility. So when it comes to, what differentiates VIMS from other institutions, I think Kristen and Justin both talked about this, but it really is that commitment to advisory service. I mean, that's a huge deal. For me, VIMS was within striking distance of Washington, D.C., where a lot of, federal fishery management actions were going on. With Dr. Graves, I was able to go up to DC pretty regularly, participate in those meetings, make a lot of connections with folks who I still work with all the time now, which is great. And of course, this is not at all unique to Dr. Graves. As great as he is, there's also many other faculty who are very much engaged in advisory service at the local, state, federal, or international level. So that's kind of a wonderful asset that VIMS brings to its students. And in addition, as John mentioned, Virginia Sea Grant is right on campus, which is deeply embedded in the community and working closely with stakeholders to try to identify and craft solutions to some of the issues that they're facing. And overall, Kristen mentioned this, the faculty is, it's a pretty special group of people, incredibly patient and accessible, especially for somebody like me who didn't have that core science background, in terms of learning new methods and being able to kind of bring the best research to bear on the questions I was trying to ask. That was a really important element for me as well. And lastly, the students, right? It's in Gloucester Point, Virginia, the student community is tight knit, and it's a wonderful component to being at VIMS. There's a social element with the Graduate Student Association. There are also all sorts of professional development opportunities. Bringing alumni in or going on trips to DC and seeing how things work there. It's just between the faculty and the students, you really have a wonderful support system during grad school. So I really appreciated all of that. And since I am the only alum, just kind of a brief epilogue. I finished VIMS in January of 2018 and did a Knaus Fellowship. So the John Knaus Fellowship is run by NOAA Sea Grant, and it's a 1-year marine policy fellowship where you can either be in an executive office or in a legislative office. I was in the legislative program working with Senator Ed Markey from Massachusetts, who spent a year on Capitol Hill, working on fisheries and marine policy issues, and sometimes some other perhaps less relevant issues, which is really interesting to learn, how the skills you learn in grad school can translate to, other, for example, energy policy issues and things like that. And then went on and spent a year at the Lenfest Ocean Program, which is a marine science grant making program. And since April, I've been the executive director of the American Saltwater Guides Association, which is a nonprofit fisheries conservation group representing the interests of conservation-minded for hire fishing captains on the recreational side, tackle manufacturers, and private anglers. So it's been a really fun trip. There are a lot of VIMS alums up here in DC, kind of working in the policy world, and it's been great to maintain and strengthen those connections as well. So I think that's all I have, and I look forward to answering any questions.
Thank you so much, Willie. That was great to hear. And I didn't know it was in April when you stepped into that role. Congratulations. With that, I'd like to call up our final panelist, Dr. Mark Brush. The floor is all yours.
Great, thanks, John, and it's just wonderful to be here. I'm really excited to get to talk to you all about VIMS. I'm happy to tell you my perspective on all of this. I'm on the VIMS faculty. I'm a associate professor in the biological sciences department at VIMS. I've been on the faculty for about 15 years, but have been at VIMS for closing in on 20 years because I was a postdoc here for a while and then a research scientist before I joined the faculty. So sort of mid-career in the ranks of the faculty. I'm an estuarine / coastal ecosystems ecologist that is interested primarily in issues of excessive nutrient loading and eutrophication, water quality, human impact on coastal systems, and increasingly combining those impacts with the impacts of ongoing climate change. I try to keep one foot in the field and in field and experimental science, and one foot in the computer modeling world, where we collect a lot of data, a lot of measurements, do a lot of experiments, and then use those data to build predictive simulation models of coastal water quality and responses to nutrient loading and climate change, setting nutrient reduction targets for management, that sort of thing, and then have sort of a side area of our work in modeling aquaculture and restoration of bivalves, oysters, hard clams. That's become an increasingly big activity in coastal waters, and it's really big in Virginia, and links to water quality, and it links to productivity of coastal waters. And so it's an area of interest for us as well. My career path, I would characterize, you're going to hear a lot of the same themes you've heard everybody else say. I would characterize my career path as a combination of intentionality and serendipity. I always was into environmental issues. I spent a lifetime growing up kayaking, canoeing, camping, hiking, doing all kinds of things outdoors, but primarily I'm from upstate New York, like Kristen, from the Finger Lakes region and the Adirondacks. And so I was a mountain person and a freshwater lake person. And the coast for me was always this sort of exotic thing, 5-6 hours down the road at its closest. But certainly the more I learned about ecology and examples from the coastal zone and human impact on coastal waters, that was always sort of out there as this really interesting thing I didn't know enough about. To be perfectly honest, though, I went to college. I went to Cornell. I also in upstate New York. I didn't go very far. And I went thinking I was going into pre-med. I was planning to be a medical doctor. And I sort of had this tension between medicine and environmental. And it was the second semester of my freshman year, I took a course in environmental conservation, and just sitting in that big lecture hall, I realized, oh my goodness, this is where my real passion is. And so I very quickly embraced in full force the environmental passion and that track, and the rest is history. But again, I didn't really know what the focus would be, and always this ocean business was kind of enticing to me. And I knew I wanted to do a senior thesis and do an honors project. And so I'm like, well, you know what, I think I want to figure out this, if the ocean is where I'm really interested in. And so, Cornell didn't have very many oceanography people, being landlocked, but it had a couple. And I happened to walk into this one faculty member's office who I knew supported a lot of undergraduate research. And I said, I'm interested in a senior thesis, and I think I might want to do a study in marine science. And what would you think about that? And he was so welcoming and so warm and embracing. And not only did he take me under his wing to do research, but because I was a bit advanced at that point, he said, why don't you TA my introductory class in oceanography? And so that's actually how I learned about marine science, is by being a TA for it. And then found a summer research opportunity actually in Mexico to study coral reefs, and got absolutely hooked. I knew my biggest area, but I just sort of happened into it, right? I happened into this guy's office. And then I knew I really wanted to focus on nutrient impacts in the coastal zone, and absolutely one of the very greatest, the grand poobah, I'll call him, the greatest minds working in the field happened to be at the University of Rhode Island. And so that's where I really wanted to go. I applied and I went out there, and he wanted to accept me as a graduate student. the research experience I'd had was my big selling point in the application process. But as part of being a TA, we just happened to do a couple labs where we had our students use some computer models of marine ecosystems. So I just happened to have this exposure to computer modeling on top of everything else. And he had just gotten a grant to build a new computer model in Narragansett Bay, Rhode Island. And so I just fell into that. And so he took me, he grabbed me up to work on this project because I had a little exposure to modeling. And I started my graduate study, and not only, marine science was great because it was the chance to combine my first love of ecology with, physics and chemistry and geology. You have to know a little bit about all that stuff to be a biologist in the marine environment. And then on top of that, he threw this modeling at me, and it was just remarkable to me that you could put some relatively simple equations down in a computer code and get your computer to reproduce what was happening in the real ecosystem. And it's just fascinating. So not only was I doing all the different fields of science I loved, I was doing math too. And so Kristen called us all nerds, and I'm the classic nerd because I love how the math combines with all this stuff to predict things about real ecosystems. It still is remarkable to me that it works. I just stumbled into that and did my PhD in Rhode Island. And so then when it came time for a postdoc, I knew about VIMS really well. Chesapeake Bay, if you're a coastal science, if you're a coastal scientist, Chesapeake Bay is the place to be, right? It's sort of the nursery ground for coastal science. A lot of the early scientific societies and coastal research started in the Bay region. And it's sort of where everybody, you want to go through the Chesapeake Bay region at least at one point in your career. And so I knew about VIMS. There happened to be a job in modeling and coastal systems here as a postdoc, and so I applied. And actually what was in the back of my head, I knew VIMS was a real leader in coastal work anyway, because when I applied to work with this guy in Rhode Island, he actually sort of leaned back in his seat and gave me a wry smile, and he said, well, if you want to do a PhD in coastal marine science, you really should apply to VIMS. He actually mentioned another Chesapeake Bay Institute, but I'm not going to tell you what that was because you should all come to VIMS. But VIMS in this region is recognized as being a leader in coastal research. And so I was so excited when there was a postdoc available at VIMS. I came, knowing VIMS was a leader. The other neat thing about wanting to work in the Chesapeake for a while, the other neat thing about VIMS is that it's exactly like where I was in Rhode Island, in that most marine labs, most marine graduate programs tend to have these field labs like VIMS, right? So we're part of the big university, and William & Mary, it's relatively small, but it is still a research university. And so we're part of that, and yet we're in this really just idyllic, unique spot at our own little campus, sitting on the Chesapeake Bay. It's an idyllic, beautiful setting. We look out my window and see that, well, I see the parking lot, but I can go around the side of the building and I can look out at the bay. And so it's an inspiring, wonderful place to work. We're on the water, and we're part of the big university. We have access to all of that, but we're the self-contained community. Everybody here is into marine science, where this is what we do. We live and breathe it. I'm surrounded in this wonderful biological sciences department, but I can walk upstairs and I can talk to a fisheries scientist or a chemist. I can go downstairs and be talking with a physical oceanographer or a geologist. We're a relatively small community feel, our own little confined campus, and yet all the disciplines are here. All the disciplines are represented, so it feels big. It's that small community feel, but it's not too small. It's big and diverse. About 450 faculty, staff, and students that work here in the low 80s. About 88, 87 graduate students right now. And so it's just this perfect size community, right? To feel like everybody knows each other, and yet you're still part of this big university and all the disciplines are represented. So it's just a truly inspiring setting to live and work and do your research. Of course, it's a leader in coastal, particularly a lot of the marine institutions around are relatively open ocean, blue water focused. VIMS is truly one of the leading coastal marine research institutions, and yet we also have people who are working all around the world, both coastally and in open ocean systems. the advisory service that others have mentioned. Every academic place, faculty are encouraged to do service to their field and to society, but at VIMS it's baked in our DNA. It's part of the Code of Virginia that requires us to do that. So that's wonderful. And then lastly is being part of William and Mary. The historical focus here is the second oldest academic institution in the nation. It's sitting here in this research, or in this historical triangle between colonial Williamsburg, Jamestown settlement, the first settlement, Yorktown, where the Revolution was won. The VIMS campus has old embankments from the Revolutionary and Civil Wars. So it's just this wonderful historical setting. And then William and Mary itself prides itself. We're a research university, but extremely committed to high quality education. And while VIMS is primarily a research institute, I teach a lot. I love it. I'm at my core a teacher, and I'm permitted, because I'm here, I'm permitted to explore and to grow my craft as a teacher, to work over at William & Mary. Our students can do the same to some degree. And so it's just, for me, it's the best of all possible worlds. And so thanks for being here. And I'm going to turn it back to John, and I look forward to answering questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mark. Now I'd like to invite the rest of our panelists to come back live with us, and we'll proceed with asking you some of the questions. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll start answering them. One of the first questions, just to answer really quick, and I think Mark, you and I can probably tackle this one, is what is the current graduate student population at VIMS? They're looking for a breakdown of PhD numbers versus master's number.
Yeah, so we're right about 87 or 88 students right now. That number has varied through time. It's been in the high 80s for a few years, and it's roughly 50-50 master's and PhD, and it has been for a while. And that is really a neat combination, right? Because you've got people at all different career stages, and we're super excited to have our new Master of Arts program starting. So we're going to have another master's program for more science professionals. It's just a neat combination of students in these different career tracks and career stages. It just is, one more unique thing that we have going for us.
Yeah, exactly. Probably a question for everybody is, do students have a global perspective while learning at VIMS? What opportunities are available for students to study it or research abroad?
Right. Well, I just answered, so I'll just say something quickly. Well, we pride ourselves on being this amazing coastal institute and a leader in Chesapeake research. VIMS is a global institution. And so we have people working both in coastal systems and blue water systems all over the world, from the pole, pole to pole, all different ocean basins, estuaries and coasts around the world as well. So we have a lot of local research, but probably pretty much every faculty member, has an aspect of their research that expands beyond. And so that permeates our coursework. You're learning about the global ocean and global coastal systems in your coursework, and a number of our students are conducting research around the world.
And I would just add, on the management and policy side as well, many faculty and students have the opportunity to be a part of that. So I, was engaged in basically international tuna management when I was at VIMS, working with my advisor. And actually, the picture for me in the first photo there with the suit holding a little lunch break fish was right after I graduated in Croatia during an international tuna meeting. So there are options. Both research internationally, but also, for some of these large regional fishery management organizations or international conservation or natural resources management bodies as well.
I'll pick up on, I think, one other thing that Willie just hinted at, which is that not only are there opportunities to do research internationally and become part of international networks, whether that's in the management world, or also in the science and research world. There are opportunities, funding, in fact, that we can apply to internally through the Office of Academic Studies, as well as GSA, to travel internationally for, within reason, anything scientific, right? Conferences, meetings with colleagues, things like that. And I had the opportunity just last year to travel to Sweden and present research at a conference there, and really got to expand my network that way. So there are those really nice opportunities to do things like that. And yeah, pretty much every researcher at VIMS has some sort of international research going on. And if COVID hadn't hit in the spring, there was a project in Brazil that I was going to be involved in. So there are these opportunities built in, and you can ask for them along the way as well. And I think Kristen probably has the most unique, interesting experience that she should talk about with Antarctica.
For sure.
Yeah, so I was able to go on the Antarctic cruise this past winter, so the austral summer. It was actually sometimes warmer there than it was here in Virginia during the same time frame, so it wasn't too cold. It was actually really amazing. It was 6 weeks. We flew down to Chile in Punta Arenas and then took the vessel across the Drake Passage. I was told it was probably one of the calmest Drake Passage crossings of all time, which is awesome because it was my first time at sea. But yeah, it was incredible. Got to go to a few different penguin colonies, pull all kinds of cool nets, see bioluminescent creatures from the deep sea, whole lot of krill, lots of salps, which are gelatinous zooplankton, met people from all over the world and all over the country that were on the cruise with us. And it was honestly one of the coolest opportunities and experiences I've ever had. So I was very thankful for that. But we've been involved in that program, the Zooplankton Ecology Lab, for quite a number of years. So that's kind of like a yearly thing. Unfortunately, will not be happening this year because of COVID. For the first time in ever, I think. It's canceled, but so that's unfortunate, but it was incredible. And I'm very thankful for the opportunity.
That actually brings us to a good next question that I wonder if you would all mind looking at is Sarah Weaver's asking, how has COVID affected research at VIMS? Will it be more difficult to find a project during this time? And I think, Mark, do you want to start with that one?
Sure. And hi, Sarah. Sarah's somebody who's contacted me. I recognized your name when I saw you. So COVID, caused some problems and delays, but we are back. We are open for business. Both our faculty, staff, and students are all conducting their research. We've all had to develop plans to stay safe and do field work. It's a little more restrictive and we can't do maybe quite as full speed as we would like, but we are able to be sampling, we are able to be doing research and back in the lab. And so, it certainly, the pause has slowed us all down a little bit, but we've all still got our grants and they're going on and we have to get the work done, and we've been creative and figured out ways to do it. And so while, it's a monkey wrench in the works, we are still taking students and we have funding to do so. So, that's how it affects you individually is a conversation, you would have with you and your prospective advisor. But we're able to make it work despite these crazy times.
Yeah. And I would also say that I don't know about Justin, but I know that Kristen's been already out on vessels and doing night sampling almost starting in the summer as well. And Justin, I think you've also been out doing some coring. I know Chris has been at least, but.
Yeah, I think we were one of the first labs just out of necessity to come up with sort of a COVID plan. And we were guinea pigs, I guess, successful guinea pigs, thankfully. No one got COVID. Anyways, yeah, there are plenty of opportunities still to get out and do research. And I think one thing to be thinking about too is if you're trying to pitch project ideas to advisors right now, is now just like probably should have been more of an emphasis in the recent past, is think about remote sensing and modeling as opportunities too that don't require as much lab and field work, right? Find opportunities to do interesting things behind the computer too. I think there are a lot of great questions in the coastal sciences that can be addressed through those topics, and is probably something that not only is attractive to funding agencies right now, but could draw in your advisors if you're thinking about projects along those lines.
Yeah, and we're right here on
I
the
didn't want to shamelessly plug my lab, but modeling is great in a COVID world.
And actually, I've pretty much been keeping up with my research this entire time. VIMS, we had a policy where it was highly encouraged that you telecommute and work from home if possible. Of course, when you're doing field research, you can't really do that. So I'm studying diel vertical migration, which is essentially the change in the surface community of zooplankton between the day and night. So I go out during the day and the night once per month at least. So I was not able to do my night sampling during those initial few months of COVID lockdown procedures, but I am now reinstated and doing all of my sampling as planned, but I was able to do the daytime sampling because we're so close and we have these vessels that are available for use at essentially any time as long as you reserve it. So I would also say, like, in addition to modeling, like, the more local that your project is, the better as far as like COVID goes, because you can essentially do the research without as many people and also without those huge vessels where it would obviously spread much more rampant when you were on like a 40-person vessel in the middle of the ocean.
Perfect. Thank you all. Unfortunately, we're running very low on time, and you all have actually like phenomenal questions in the chat. So I feel really bad about not answering them all. But I think I want to close with the last one that I want to kind of get Justin and Willie and Kristen to all join in is, Sarah's looking for an advisor in funding. What would you suggest when searching for an advisor in funding? So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your advice and suggestions for prospective students to start that search.
Go on the website and email whoever looks interesting to you. That is 100% the thing to do. So it does not hurt to reach out to people. Most everyone at VIMS is very approachable and kind and nice, and they will be willing to either potentially, entertain your request to be a part of their lab or push you in the direction of somebody you may be interested in working with, myself included. So John, if you want to share contact info, I'm happy to talk to people too if they want to reach out. But yeah, I would say just email whoever seems interesting to you and see where it goes from there.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect bit of advice for how to do it, is just reach out to people and make sure that you're reaching out to people that you are genuinely interested in working with. It doesn't hurt to shop around and really explore all the potentials, right? I mean, there are plenty of people who would not call themselves coastal geologists at VIMS, for example, that do a heck of a lot of coastal geology. And so be creative, look around, find people that can take students that might be in the Center for Coastal Resources Management, for example, people that you wouldn't think of immediately. There are a lot of really neat opportunities. So yeah, do your homework, shop around on the website. But yes, like Kristen, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to try to put you in touch with the right person or help answer questions.
Yeah, I think that covers it. I think, certainly, you don't know if you don't ask. And I think certainly for me, like, as Justin was saying, you want to make sure it's somebody whose work you really want to, are interested in. And I think it pays to do a little bit of homework, read some of their publications, understand kind of what their research program looks like, and use that to inform your search. And I think if you can, come to the conversation with some ideas, that's great. But, as I mentioned in my case, my advisor was super helpful in kind of crafting a project that kind of helped to meet my goals and address an interesting question. So I think, reach out to folks and see what's out there.
Perfect. Thank you all so much. So we're going to head into closing. So I'm going to share my screen again with everybody real quick before we wrap it up. If you have any further questions, please take a look at our website, vims.edu/education/graduate. That has a lot of the resources and information that you might need. Also, if you prefer that like one-on-one chat and we didn't answer your questions, please email me or our office at admissions@vims.edu or my own email at jmgriffin@vims.edu. I'm happy to talk and further answer these questions that you might have. Also, we're on social media. We're on Facebook. You can follow us there, or if Twitter is more your jam, you can follow us at either at VIMS News or at VIMS Grad Dean. Both are great ways to connect with us. Also, another way, if you just love VIMS and everything that you heard tonight really resonated with you and you need more pure information coming your way, please sign up for eTidings, which is our newsletter that we send out regularly. And here's all the ways that you can sign up for that, or you can find it on our website. And then finally, if you really liked what you saw or you have more questions, please join us in the next 2 weeks for our final 2 informational webinars. Next week, on the 12th, we will be exploring the new professional MA in marine science. I know there's a question in the chat about the MA. Please come join us there. We'll dive way farther into it and have a great conversation around it. And then finally, part 4, as we head into Thanksgiving break, we're going to have a navigating the application process webinar. And that's going to be a phenomenal resource for any of you who are thinking of applying either to us or to a marine science graduate program in general, because we're going to talk to admissions committee members and faculty and students about what they did to be successful in their search, what faculty and advisors look for, and just steps and techniques you might want to think about as you are working on that application. With that, that is my closing remarks. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. We're so glad to have spent this time with you, and we hope it was helpful. And to all my panelists, thank you all for coming out as well. I really appreciate it. And to everybody, I hope you have a safe and great night, and hopefully see everybody here next week at the same time. With that, good night, everybody.